And we are live. Okay, Charlie, this is old hat for you.
I know.
So I don't
Gosh,
need to give you the spiel.
Number 6. We're halfway home, man.
You're a pro. So, Jen, you ready?
Yep.
Here comes the introduction.
You're listening to the Grow Clinton podcast. Grow Clinton is a 501c6 nonprofit economic community development and tourism organization based in Clinton, Iowa. For more information, visit growclinton.com. Again, that's growclinton.com. Now, back to the show.
What's happening, everybody out there in podcast land? Thank you so much for listening to another episode of the Grow Clinton podcast. As always, I am your host for today's episode, Andy Sokolovich, President and CEO, joined by Jenny Home from our office. Jenny, what's happening?
We've got a huge subject today, but it's so important.
Yes, we do. We are once again joined by Dr. Charlie Minnick to discuss the Leadership Unlocked series. We are focusing on session 6 coming up on what's the date of this next one? The 18th of June at 2 p.m. physically held here at our office, 721 South 2nd Street. Also available via virtual option, MS Teams. And we'll talk about that here in a second. But before we introduce Charlie Minnick, Jenny, there's something I got to talk about.
What is it?
High-speed fiber internet. That's right, folks. The Grow Clinton podcast is powered by Miles Communications, offering high-speed fiber internet, television, and telephone services. If you're a company or you just want wicked fast internet for your home, make sure you reach out to them, milestelephone.com. Again, milestelephone.com for all your high-speed fiber internet needs. Yes, leadership is one of those topics you could talk about forever. It is always changing, but there are some constants. And we do have Dr. Charlie Minnick with us. He is a partner of Grow Clinton, helping us put together the Leadership Unlocked series. And in session 6, we're talking about when success becomes the enemy, how to build a culture of curiosity to overcome those status quo behaviors. And we're going to have a presenter attend, Dr. Diane Hamilton, which has written a few books, one of which I just purchased. It is called Curiosity Unleashed, Achieving Business Excellence by Challenging the Status Quo. And you can pick that up on Amazon. Charlie, how you doing, sir?
Good. Hey, it's number 6.
I
should like
know.
have my own cup or something.
Yeah.
For
your own
Yeah.
name placard. Yeah.
We'll figure something out.
Yes.
I have a diode laser at home, so I'm always looking at some cool stuff. But
No,
Leadership Unlocked, again, is a
Mhm.
series we're doing once a month for the entire duration of the year of 2025. This next one, again, is coming up on the 18th of June at 2 p.m. You can register at growclinton.com, select the calendar, click on the drop down, go to June 18th, and the link to register will be right there. But what can we expect on June 18th, talking about when success becomes the enemy?
Yeah, so I think people think, well, how the heck can success be an enemy?
Super
What-
counterintuitive.
what's that look
Yeah.
like? Well, I think it's what happens is, and Jim Collins wrote a book called Good to Great.
Mhm.
What he talks, one of the things he talks about in there, the greatest obstacle to great is good.
Mhm.
And so we have this success, then we get stuck in this status quo sort of thing.
Right.
You know what? And how many times have we heard, well, it's not broke, don't, or if it's not, it's not
Yeah.
broke, don't fix it.
Or that's the way we've always done it.
Yeah, that's
Right.
what we've always done. There's a great book about that. It's a good book. Talks about sacred cows make the best burgers.
Yeah.
It talks about how to attack those things, those legacy things. We've always done it that way. We've done it for 20 years that way. But talks about how do we grill those things up? Because if you want to drive change, sometimes you have to go after those legacy things or the way we've always done it.
Well, and a lot of times too, it doesn't mean you have to change everything. It's just like new technology or new marketing or something that you can go after the legacy things, but tweak them.
Yeah, I think what has to remain consistent is your organizational values and believe those type of things, what you value as an organization. How you get there might change a little bit, but those have to remain constant, I think, is values and what you truly believe in and kind of those type of things I think are critical. So,
And then Charlie, Dr. Diane Hamilton will be joining us virtually.
she will.
So if you're participate in the MS Teams option, you'll be able to see her. If you come physically to her office on June 18th at 2 p.m., she will be up on the screen, but she is no doubt a subject matter expert. Not only has she authored, I believe, 2 books on the subject of curiosity within a company, but she's also a contributing author to Forbes business magazines and a slew of other things out there.
She's
that
a
really,
Fulbright specialist.
yeah, really
isn't she?
makes her stand out.
Yeah. So she's done a lot. Yeah. So we're really fortunate to have Diane come and share her years and years of experience with us. And you talk about, why do some organizations succeed? Why did Amazon succeed and Sears not so much?
Yeah.
I think part of it is they embrace change. And I think that's part of the idea behind curiosity is how do we drive change? I think the greatest tool we have most in any type of organization is the ability to ask questions.
Right.
I think we have to, I always tell my kids when they were growing up, you can always question authority while still respecting authority.
Absolutely.
So I think that's part of it. And I think that's where organizations grow. They continue to grow and they get past this way of always done it. Because I think you always got to be, how do we do it better? How to become more efficient? How to become more fast? And we start resting on your laurels or what you've done, then the world passes you by. And sometimes organizations get stuck with this paralysis by analysis thing. You think, and then the whole time in the fast lane, or if you're in California, the HUV, whatever that lane is called, where people go really, really fast, it's passing you by while you're sitting and thinking about stuff. So, and I think there's so much. I think what we have to do as leaders is tap into the knowledge that's in our organizations. I think we have so much talent and insight, but we don't tap into them enough. And I probably talked about this in the past. The question I always ask people is, if you were a king or queen for the day, the week, the month, what would you do to change, enhance, grow, whatever we do to better serve you so you can better serve our clients?
Right.
So, and you get a lot of cool stuff if you ask those questions.
And that sounds like the Big River packaging. They let their employees, address the change, but also you never know who's on the cutting edge.
Yeah, so that's what you have to do, I think, is really embrace those things and what's different and how do we do stuff. And
approaching leadership and questioning opportunities for change or influencing curiosity in the workplace, that's an art form in itself, because there's a way to ask leadership about change, about trying new things without coming across as you feel like you're smarter than leadership, or you're putting down their methodology that they've adopted over years and years and years of business existence.
Yeah, I think it's acknowledging, it's been effective this way, but how do we kind of keep that? Maybe that core little piece, but expand and change and grow. I think that's, if you're going to work with your boss, try to get them to change a little bit. It's, between the eyeballs can be a little challenging sometimes. But I think that's what it is. Let's acknowledge, but let's look down the road. How to become more effective? And it's about this ability to embrace curiosity and change and ask questions. How do we do that?
Well put, Charlie. You think of companies that when you talk about change and curiosity and adaptability, what comes to mind? Google, Apple, companies that are still kicking butt and taking names.
Right.
And then you reflect back on companies like BlackBerry. And that's one of the things that, Diane Hamilton will talk about is they failed to adapt. They failed to change. They failed to meet their customers where they were headed. And as a result, they don't exist. Nokia. It's the same thing, especially with the smartphone revolution.
Give up their
It's all about
traditional
continuous
keyboard.
improvement. How do we look at every system and process? Do we understand it? Does it still make sense? What do we need to,
and that's the
is
thing.
it still effective?
Technology today changes every day. You can't just sit there and not acknowledge that.
Yeah. And I think people have realized too, there's no organizations that are growing. There's no such thing as a low stress organization that's on the track to change and be successful. Just a certain amount but I think it's okay in a way, a certain amount of tension and stress keep people, we don't want to freak people all the time, but a certain amount of stress and tension and keeping things moving and effectively questioning each other. And what do you think about this? And what do you think about that? And That's how you keep moving stuff forward.
Well,
People
our
feel
industry,
ownership.
yeah,
Yeah.
our industry is a perfect example. I mean, yes, we're Grow Clinton, but we still fit within the realm of chambers of commerce.
Mhm.
And I take part in conversations, chamber leadership groups from all over the state and all over the country. And they're all asking the same questions: is how do we change? How do we adapt so that we can become an organization that provides a return on investment, demonstrate
Mhm.
value to its members? And if you want to do the way it always has been, which traditionally you joined the chamber because it was the right thing to do,
Mhm.
Mhm.
that doesn't cut the mustard anymore.
Nope.
You know, it's you have to be able to provide a return. And what does that return look like? And I think for us, it's the adoption of new technologies,
Mhm.
mastering those new technologies, and then allowing us to educate our members on how they can leverage those technologies to help grow and develop their business.
Yeah, I think what happens sometimes, people, when they resist change, it's because they're worried too much about all the bad things that might happen, as opposed to
Fear of the
busy,
unknown.
busy
Right.
kind of create the kind of future that you want. We had two stuff. Well, this might happen. This, sometimes they might happen, but I think you have to just kind of, sometimes you got to go for it. You have to you can't just live in what might happen. Well, it might. Well, what happens if we don't? Then what
Right.
happens? Then
And
we
people
left
get
behind.
territorial about things too. I
Yeah.
mean, so they've always done it that way, and they
Yeah.
just feel like, this is ours, and you got to put the ego aside and workshop it.
Yeah, I think, one of the best insurance policies tomorrow is to make the best use of today.
Right.
Mhm.
How do you do that? And I read this quote one time about change, and talks about people change enough when they hurt enough, they have to change, learn enough, they want to change, and receive enough, they're able to change.
Mhm.
So those
Right.
three, once you got those three things, especially the last two, I think they learn enough. Okay, I get it. Now, if we don't do something, this might happen and might not all be good.
A perfect example of that is like your own physical health.
Right.
You have a
Yeah.
heart attack, all of a sudden you stop eating junk food, you start exercising
Mhm.
because, or your mental health, maybe you hit rock bottom and you quickly realize there's an issue with you, whether it be substance abuse or whatever. And it takes that fear, that instant gratification that you used to get from consuming booze or eating
Mhm.
junk food. You got to all put that aside and make some changes, because if not, you won't be around for long.
Yeah,
Right.
I used to work in my 30s. Now I'm not in my 30s. It's not such a
What?
good choice. I know, hard to believe in that. Yeah, I know. It's not such a good choice anymore. That metabolism kind of slows down, or goes kaput or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's the same thing. Organizations. We have to keep moving. So, but I think that's what happens is people are afraid of the future, and we just too comfortable is part of it too. So I think that's, people just spend too much energy desperately trying to hold on to old habits.
Yeah.
Mhm.
If you do that, if you continue, you're doing stuff, but you're doing the wrong stuff, that's just going to make it worse.
Well, that's what they always say about change is if you're in a situation where you're unhappy or in pain, or you'll keep it because you don't know what the future brings. And you're
Mhm.
aware of this, you
Yeah.
know how to handle this. It's like the devil,
Yeah. So
as
we just
opposed to
keep
devil
hanging
you
into
don't
it.
know. Mhm.
And it's thing about, even if this status quo thing, somebody's like, well, I've been offered this new job in this different department where I work, but we're so used to where we work and we're comfortable, we might pass up that opportunity because we're like, you know what, I'm just going to stay around because I'm comfortable with that. And that you missed an opportunity to grow, develop, expand your horizons, whatever that is. But that's that status quo sort of. Really, if you look for, if you have to bid for a new software company or something, well, we've known these people, we've been with them.
Oh yeah, that's the number one
Yeah.
sales
We'll
pitch.
hang with them, but maybe they can't really give us what we like to. I really like this guy, this gal. They've always done us well, but maybe they can't provide us where we need to go. We
Mhm.
get, it's that status quo behavior. It's like, well,
Right.
but you have to really think through all.
Oh
those
yeah, every time we get a solicitation for
things.
sales or something
Yeah.
like that, the first thing, if we work with them in the past, is, well, you've been a client of ours for a number of years.
Mhm.
And we had a group of people stop in the other day pitching us on print advertising and print only, no digital option whatsoever. And I was like, that's a
hard
little
sell.
antiquated. And
Yeah.
they're like, yeah, but our distribution is far and wide. I'm like, okay, but I don't care about your readership.
Right.
Like, you need to explain to me. I mean, that's a segment of our marketing efforts, but what do you have from a digital realm?
Right.
and they had nothing. And that's, to me, an inability to adapt.
Yeah. It's just
Mhm.
you can't play the new game by the old rules. You
Right.
just can't. I mean, everything's digital this day and age, and everything's,
Metrics.
yeah, how many, like my kids, they don't get any, everything's electronic. They get their bills electronic.
Yep.
Everything's electronic. They don't get anything.
Mhm.
I don't even know where my checkbook is at.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
that's my
they-
reality. Is when
Yeah.
there's very few things I have to
Yeah.
write a check for. Once a year, I write a check for I can't remember what it's for, but when that once a year time comes, I have to dig to try to find a checkbook because it's not something I access. Now, my mom, she writes checks for everything. She doesn't pay
Right
online.
there.
Everything that has the ability to accept a check, she will write a check.
Yep.
And there's nothing wrong with that. But like one of the talking points for Dr. Diane Hamilton's presentation, again, coming up on June 18th, you can register at growclinton.com, is to embrace artificial intelligence. And Dr. Hamilton says, understand how fostering curiosity can help employees, and leaders embrace AI technologies and enhance their ability to leverage these tools to make better decisions, increase productivity, and sustain innovation.
Talk about fear.
Yeah, AI stuff,
Right?
Yeah. AI is everywhere. I mean, it's just the way it is. Like in higher ed, we do it all the time with people like, well, are students really writing their paper, or is Chat GPT writing their paper? I think we have to get smart about AI. How can we, from an education side, how can it give immediate feedback to people if they're writing a paper? If you're writing in the middle of the night, because there's some way they can give me feedback on whatever it, not write it for me, and all those type of things. How can it make us more efficient and effective with our time? And
well, I'm a
those type
huge
of things?
fan, and I'm going to tell our little interaction.
Yes.
So Jenny, of a different demographic than myself.
I'm
and,
old. Yeah.
no, but one of the things that
Seasoned.
we were collaborating on the creation of a survey for our members to gauge what they enjoy about being a member of our organization, what we can do better, and what return on investment they receive. And she had put together this survey. I ran it through Chat GPT. Chat GPT adjusted the formatting and the way the questions were worded, as well as the number of questions and the order those came in. And then they provided some suggestions, And I walked into Jenny's office and I was like, well, here is what Chat GPT pushed out. And I tend to agree with this, this, and this. And she said to me, I paid a lot for my education. And I said, I know, but these are actually
I worked
really
hard
good
on that.
points.
Yeah.
And if it allows us to get a stronger participation rate on our survey, then let's look at possibly modifying.
It's true. I went through I wrote the whole survey out, and then I gave it to Andy, and he said, well, what about this? And I said, that's when I said that. But then after he left, I put something into Chat GPT, and I went, this is great.
So that it's not a crutch. It's a tool is the way I look at it. It's a very effective tool. And I'll give another example. I was preparing for a board meeting where I had to make a pitch to potentially sell some land to an investor out at the Lincoln Way Industrial Rail and Air Park. And I crafted this long email with all my talking points. And I just looked at it and I thought, why I felt it was well written, it looked like I just regurgitated a whole bunch of information onto a body of an email. So I ran it through ChatGPT,
and genius.
It pulled all of my points out, did not change the way it was written, but made it so that it was easy to follow. This is what their opportunity is. This is why we should do it. These are the pros. These are the cons, potential pitfalls, and conclusion with a recommendation to the board.
Yeah.
I just copied and paste that, included an image of the land from Beacon, and it just presented very well. And you didn't have to be in the know or be a subject matter expert to realize what I was asking and why I felt the way I did.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. I mean, the fear of the change and fear of what's in there. And, all of that, you've got to be able to, I'm sure Dr. Hamilton has suggestions on how to face that and how to be able to embrace the future like that.
Yeah. I mean, I think first of all, you have to, with change, I think about the time you're getting tired of talking about it is when people are starting to get it.
Right. Yeah.
And you have to keep people informed on what's going on. It's like, we're doing this and here's where we're at. Here's the outcome. You got to keep people involved and engaged. You got to stay in front of people, let them know what's going on.
Yeah.
And let people have input wherever they can, because people fundamentally want to know what's going to happen to me. in a lot of these big change things. What's it
Mhm.
mean to me?
Mhm.
How is it going to impact me? People have real strong interests in, employability and how, some of those basic things. Well, how is this going to impact me? Positive, negative?
Mhm.
Am I potentially going to be out of a job? You hear the dreaded merger word. Oh,
Mhm.
God, no.
Right.
No, what's that going to mean? Because chances are you're not going to take two organizations, keep them completely the way they are, and bring them together. That's part of.
Yeah.
Right.
But if you're in the
That's probably not gonna-
workforce and you plan on being in the workforce for a length of time,
Yeah.
it is important that you learn these new technologies.
Yeah.
Just think
Mhm.
about the transition from typewriter to word processing
Mhm.
and the adoption of the Microsoft Office suite. I mean, now it's like, it's basic. You have
Right.
you have to be able to access Word and use it. Excel, PowerPoint. I mean, all those things are expected.
Mhm.
But can you imagine if your entire or a large portion of your professional career was behind a typewriter, how crazy and scary that must have been to now sit in front of a personal computer?
Well, and the thing is, whenever you think of change and what could happen, it's always the worst. You don't think this could really be great.
Yeah, you
you just think, oh, this is
You
going
got
to
to
come back
view it
and
as
get me.
got to view it as a tool. And
Right.
I love it. I love technology. I always have. I just think stuff is so neat, the way that we're able to access things from like ChatGPT to Canva and create content that is quality, but you don't have to be a graphic designer. You don't have to be a videographer.
Mhm.
Now, all those places and all those careers still hold value because there's only so much AI can do to get you by. There's definitely a skill set necessary to be a professional. And we do contract with professionals to create content for us. But man, if you're not leveraging AI as a tool, then you're going to become obsolete.
Yeah,
Right.
I think that's a good point. But it's a tool. It's not supposed to replace human thought,
Mhm.
It never will.
human emotions and thought and critical thinking. And it's to help you kind of fine tune some of those things. It's not designed to replace those. But if you ever get that, I mean, that'll be troubling, I think.
Yes.
But yeah, I had a typewriting class in high school.
Me too.
Yeah, I had a typing class,
Yeah, we had a-
Keyboarding,
Yeah.
they called it for you, though. Yeah.
Yeah, but you don't walk around with a can of whiteout in your pocket anymore because you just don't need it.
Right.
But it's interesting. It really is. And it's just one of those
Yeah.
things where I love learning about this stuff. And I love being able to adopt technology to make our organization more advanced, more effective, because in turn, if we as a staff become more effective, we can issue stronger benefits to our members.
Yeah. So that's what we're doing at work or stuff. So now I work for University of Arizona Global Campus, which is part of the University of Arizona system. So I'm now actually I'm a state of Arizona employee now.
Yeah.
How about that? But so what we're looking at is online learning, because you think about the early days when it started with, I mean, University of Phoenix was probably one of the early adapters to online
Mhm.
stuff when that came around. So now we're looking at, we're kind of, how do we become partners with us and Arizona Online? And so how do we become partners? So we have a senior provost who's kind of leads the charge there, put together this kind of online initiative advisory board. So how do we look at the internal and external realities as we put these two pieces together? And so we've got people from all over the country. So we got students and alumni, and we have some real great thought leaders from all different walks of life. So how do we become unified partners in delivering online education for the University of Arizona? We each do our own thing, do it pretty well, but how do we merge that sort of thing? So that's one of my new tasks. So he asked me to be the liaison between the executive group and this advisory board to kind of keep us moving and thinking about stuff and how do we become more efficient and effective. And I mean, are we doing okay? Yeah. But how do we take it
Always.
to the next level and tap into all these experiences and knowledge everybody's doing? So it'll be really fun. So we're starting that in July.
Yeah,
So
this is great. Again, we're talking to Dr. Charlie Minnick, who's partnering with Grow Clinton to offer a series called Leadership Unlocked. It is a 12-part series. We are moving very closely on June 18th to session 6, where we'll be talking about when success becomes the enemy. Again, you can register for this event at growclinton.com. Click on the calendar, go to June 18th, and then register via that link. There is a physical option to come here at 721 South 2nd Street at 2 p.m. on the 18th and participate in the course. Or as you register, you will also receive a link to a Microsoft Teams room where we will have Dr. Diane Hamilton present as well as a guest presenter.
Yeah, and
Very cool.
Yeah,
It's
bottom line
exciting.
is we just have to do about how do we try differently instead of trying harder? Because if you're working harder at the wrong things,
Right.
you're probably gonna, what's the definition in saying do the same thing over and over,
Over
expect
and
different
over and
results?
over again.
Yeah, so let's
Expect
try
different
differently
results.
instead of trying harder doing the wrong thing. Let's focus our energies that way. And
Well, the concept of curiosity has existed since mankind.
That's how we got where we are.
Everybody was always curious of how to be more efficient. Therefore, the
Yeah.
wheel was invented. Thomas Edison failed how many times? You look at Ben Franklin. I mean, all these guys. Look at Steve Jobs.
Mhm.
And then, his autobiography is about 3 inches thick. But if you dig into it, I only read about a quarter of it. But man, they failed so many times, so many heartbreaks, lost money, didn't understand their customer. But once they cracked that code and they got laser focused into what their customer wanted, and they were able to adapt to new technologies, they're unstoppable. And their mission has never changed.
And it's a matter of not taking it personally either. I mean, you just have to keep going. You can't get your feelings
And
hurt.
everybody blames Amazon, for the death of the brick and mortar retail storefront. But at the end of the day, you have to be impressed by their ability to leverage new technologies because they're the first one to do so.
Right.
I mean, here they went from selling stuff out of garages to then warehousing to now a global retail, almost a monopoly on the retail market, to offering anything you could possibly think of is on Amazon, whether it's sold by a third-party wholesaler or direct from Amazon. Then they get into the Amazon system of managing information because they knew the influx of digital information was going to be so massive that they would need somewhere to store all this information.
And this wasn't a one idea thing. This was something they work on probably every day, all the time.
Every day. I guarantee you there's a position that's called Chief Curiosity Officer or something like that.
Right.
And if there isn't, but that's what, one of the things we empower everybody here at Grow Clinton to do is think of new ideas, especially copying other people's success or mimicking their process. If somebody cracks that code in advance of Grow Clinton, good for them. But you best better believe we're going to be sniffing around trying to figure out how to adopt that for ourselves, because there's no reason to reinvent the wheel.
Right.
But we do want to be trendsetters in the industry.
yeah, R&D can mean rip off and duplicate too.
Oh, it's podcasting. Podcast is a perfect example. Oh, don't even get me started. Copyright and patent infringement is insane.
That's another story.
And one of the biggest abusers of patent infringement is who?
Amazon,
right? There is a whole side of Amazon where if you're selling a product, doesn't matter what it is, clothing, whatever, that if Amazon realizes it's been a successful seller on their platform, they will figure out how to copy exactly what you're selling, and they will make it under the Amazon Basics a brand and sell it for cheaper. So it's not all good. And don't get me wrong, I'm not sitting here and saying Amazon is the most amazing company in history of the world, but you have to respect the tenacity and their willingness to constantly adapt and be creative and curious.
And that's the word too, isn't it, Charlie? Tenacity.
Yeah, you just got to be tenacious and fierce and focused and keep your eye on the prize.
Yep, we got a sign hanging right here on our wall. It says, "Be savage, not average."
There it is.
And if you really want to be successful, you have to grind.
Right.
Yeah, just grind.
And that means sleepless nights. That means log nights. That means some fear of the unknown and throwing stuff up against the wall. But the beautiful part with Grow Clinton is if we try something and it doesn't work, maybe we try it again, doesn't work again, then we put it on the back burner. We have to be flexible. And that's something I'm very proud of this organization and all of our employees for accomplishing.
It needs to be nimble.
So Charlie, again, Dr. Diane Hamilton will be there. You got a couple copies of her books you're going to give away. Right?
Yeah. So she's really top. We're really fortunate to have someone of Diane's worldly experience and knowledge and insights. And she's very engaging, has lots of experience and just very relatable. And she'll be a fantastic presenter for us.
Yeah.
Session number 6.
One of the bullets that I'm very excited to hear about is to create a culture of curiosity. And she'll discuss how to discover practical strategies to cultivate a culture that encourages curiosity, creativity, and this is the most important thing to me, continuous learning among all employees. One thing here at Grow Clinton we do is empower our staff to seek out professional development opportunities. And that doesn't mean it's something in line with the position that you hold. If you're interested in pursuing X because you feel like that knowledge will support the growth and development of our organization, then I'm all for it. Go learn these things, take classes on AI, learn about ChatGPT, learn about smartphone or application development. All those things are incredibly beneficial to the future of Grow Clinton.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Keep fighting the good fight.
And then I'm back to my ChatGPT rant. One of the things that I feel connects leadership at all levels, and also outside of the office in your own personal life, is communication, effective communication. And with the results and the information that I've received in leveraging ChatGPT or artificial intelligence, it's helped me to refine my communication skills and really reduce the excess verbiage that's not necessary, whether it's written or verbal communication. Having the opportunity to find a clear and concise message and then applying that to a platform to reach your target audience is extremely beneficial.
Especially since now everybody's attention span is so limited. We talk about making videos. They got to be 30 seconds. We're not going to have somebody watch an 8-minute long video. We did create one recently and it's great, but we have to actually get snippets out of that 8 minutes because we're not going to have somebody start from beginning to end.
Yeah, we should talk about, we did like class and stuff. The mind can only absorb as much as the tail end can endure.
Like
So that's what but yeah, I think it's about, and we have a session on communication coming up. I would say maybe it's August, September or something like that. Something like that. So we'll talk a lot about that. That's critical.
Yeah. And in Grow Clinton, we have to understand that our members are all different too.
All different.
Many of them prefer that Jenny comes to their office, sits down with them, and has a one-on-one, face-to-face conversation. Many appreciate the fact that we just send out a weekly newsletter.
Right.
Many enjoy the fact that they have a website they can access. Some of them don't want to interact at all, but they want to support the organization. We just need to identify what that looks like and categorize those people, so we're not just expecting a massive amount of response from a message that's missing the target.
Tightrope.
Very good, Charlie.
All right.
Well, we want to thank you again
Of
for your
course.
continued
Pleasure.
involvement and partnership. This was your idea. You came to us, and I'm so glad that you did, because this series, again, Leadership Unlocked, has been amazing. And we are archiving all the previous sessions via our YouTube channel as well. But come again June 18th, 2 p.m. here at Grow Clinton. Register online, growclinton.com.
Awesome. Yeah, Diane's fantastic. It's well worth your hour of time.
It really is. Yeah.
Yeah, excellent. Jenny, what do you got going on today?
Okay, today we got a newsletter to work on. I'm also working on the membership survey, which I'm really excited about. I'm really happy that that's going to be living on our website permanently.
Yeah.
It's better than trying to force something out and get a time limit and then people forget. And if it's on there, it's 24 hours a day. You can answer when you get the chance.
There's
Right.
ChatGPT enhanced too.
It's ChatGPT.
Yes, it will be. It is. That's right.
Actually, we use a program called JotForm.
Yep.
JotForm is just an online survey tool. You can create tons of different things with it, but one of the bells and whistles with our subscription is an AI bot.
Yes.
And we upload a picture of Jenny from her headshot, and you can actually text a number and it will allow you to fill out the survey, but it's Jenny. It looks like it's Jenny responding to you, but it's actually an AI generated bot. But its responses are very human-like. So
Just like me.
yeah, so it is cool. It is interesting. I'm just blown away by how much you're able to do and how efficient things are, because even in the drafting of bylaws recently, I mean, bylaws historically were written in very legal speak, and there's a need for some of that.
Meeting.
But when you're trying to identify what the bylaws actually mean, sometimes the legalese can cloud the meaning of the actual article. So we run it through ChatGPT, and it simplified some of the verbiage and made it so it was easy for even the layman to understand.
Right.
And that's what you want. You want your board to understand what's in the bylaws and what they have a fiduciary responsibility to understand regarding the financials and all that stuff. So why not simplify it? And if there's a tool out there that allows you to do that, review, make your own changes accordingly to target the right words to use for the industry, and so be it.
Right.
Leverage it.
Do it.
Yes,
Do
you
it.
can ignore
Just
it,
do
but
it.
I'm telling you what, if you choose to ignore it, it's not going away.
You got to learn.
It's only going to get more invasive.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just crazy.
Always got to
how-
be willing to learn.
Yeah,
That's
it's
it.
crazy. All right, everybody.
Good.
Well, that's been episode 126 of the Grow Clinton podcast, recorded on this 9th day of June in the year 2025. Again, we want to thank our sponsor, Miles Communications, for hooking us up with high-speed fiber internet. Without Miles, we would not be able to record this podcast. They ensure that we can go live streaming in clarity and great sound. As always, I've been your host, Andy Sokolovich, joined by Jenny Home from her office. Until next time, folks, stay classy.
Thank you for listening to the Grow Clinton podcast. Be sure to subscribe and follow us on all your socials. Until next time, see ya.
All right, let me do this. Let me export this. We're still live until I finish here. If I don't do it now, I will forget. Grow Clinton podcast, episode 126. That's insane. 126 already. It's only getting better. All right, let's go aim.
We all
Yeah. We got the memo.
have a memo today.